I know that you've been successful in registering country of origin certificate lately.
That's right. Yeah, we registered geographical indication of Scotch whisky.
So there must be a lot of false claims on the market at the moment in terms of country of origins.
Yes, I suspect you would say that. And yeah, there are a number. So far, there's only 3 on the register. One is cognac. Mm-hmm. One is an alcoholic beverage from Peru called pica, and the third one is Scotch whisky. And I think there's a number of, because the law change was quite recent, there's a number of others that are on the way through.
But so far, only 3 certificates have been issued.
So far, only 3 foreign
certificates.
GIs. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so the investors out there should be more active in this particular area. To protect their trademarks in Vietnam.
That's right.
Let's talk about counterfeit, which is something that a lot of people are interested in Vietnam. Yeah. And I know that it's widely available in Vietnam. Say, for example, we've got about 20 to 50% of the counterfeit wine in Vietnam.
Right.
So good luck to those people who drink counterfeit wine. But it happens. And we've got about 90% of branded fashion clothing in Vietnam being counterfeit. Yep. We've got about 50% of motorbikes in Vietnam being counterfeit. Yep. Isn't that startling in Vietnam with those figures?
Well, those figures seem quite high. The definition of a counterfeit catches quite a few things. So, if you look at motorbikes, for example, if you have a perfectly safe motorbike, but it's just, it's not branded, and you stick a Honda sticker on it or a Yamaha sticker on it, that would turn it into a counterfeit. So it doesn't mean, it's not right that you should be trading off someone else's goodwill, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's unsafe. Of course, there may be unsafe counterfeits out there, so we'd catch those ones as well. But it would also catch, in the motorcycle market, for example, machines where there's spare parts. The bike could be genuine, but if you start buying spare parts for your bike, then they could be counterfeit, and that would be part of that percentage, and that would make it quite high.
How do you protect your clients, though, in such a circumstance in Vietnam?
Well, you've got to have information. So, firstly, you've got to do your market research and find out the amount of copies out there, who's behind them, where are they getting copies from, where are they manufacturing them, are they being made here, or are they being made somewhere else and brought in, for example, China?
I would imagine that you've got a lot of these cases in Vietnam.
Yeah, we've got a lot of these cases. I think, if there's a trend, you can see that there's a trend towards the more difficult cases, so more like the lookalikes, because it is relatively straightforward to stop a counterfeit. I would say in certain areas, the penalties have been pretty tough. So, in the counterfeit pharmaceutical area, then the penalties are quite tough. In cosmetics, they're tough, and in foodstuffs, they're quite tough.
So anything that's concerning your health.
Exactly. Anything that is potentially a health risk.
If not?
Well, if not, then if it's a pure economic risk, it is an issue. Counterfeits will proliferate like anything else in an economy that's growing.
If I find out, though, Chris, sorry about that. If I find out where the counterfeit products are produced in Vietnam, would I be able to take that case to the authority and get them to stop it immediately? Yeah,
and that's what you'd do. You'd get your information and you'd go to the relevant administrative body. So either economic police if it's a high level of counterfeit, or if you're talking about you found the manufacturing source, the factory, then probably economic police, or if it's at market level, you go to the Market Management Bureau. But yes, gather your information, take the case, and things will happen. Do they act immediately, or do I have to wait? It depends. If it's a matter of health and safety, then you'll get pretty swift action. Otherwise, they will do a bit of their own research. They will do a bit of their own checking, and it will just depend on priorities. So registration is one thing. Protection is another, isn't it? What are the challenges in your experiences in terms of protection of IP and trademark in Vietnam? I think some of the things we've already touched on, which is just the volume of the work out there and the resources. So in terms of protection, I would say they're They're the main things.
So what would be your advice to your clients in terms of getting full protection in Vietnam, given the challenges at the moment?
You would register your trademark, of course. You would register the packaging, so so the get-up of your product, and make sure that your rights are properly known.
If you don't have a case when you go to court in Vietnam, is there any other solutions available to international clients in terms of appealing?
Well, if you take a case and you don't like the decision at court, then you'd appeal at the court. If you're not getting any traction anywhere, then the other options are you'd engage sort of lobbying party.
Have you ever done that before in Vietnam?
Yes, we've done that.
And you've been successful in doing that?
Yes.
So there are solutions here in Vietnam in those areas?
There are very definitely solutions. I mean, of course, there are very definitely challenges.
Well, it's good to know that there are solutions.
But there are very definitely solutions. I think, you've got to take a flexible approach. You've got to look at all the range of options available to you. You've got to accept that it's not the US, it's not the UK, it's not France, it's not Germany, it's not Japan. Progress is being made. It's sometimes frustrating, sometimes difficult, but
a lot of things are impossible, but a lot of things are possible as well in Vietnam.
I think that's a good motto.
That's the flexibility of Vietnam. I read the white paper from the European Chamber of Commerce lately, and it says that counterfeiting and infringement of intellectual property rights and related rights on a commercial scale in Vietnam is increasing a lot. However, the administrative fines and sanctions in Vietnam seem to be inefficient. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's an example of how one thing is taking a little bit of time to catch up with the other. So higher fines, higher sanctions, would be something we'd be happy with.
So with the current structure of fines and sanctions in Vietnam, that wouldn't stop people from producing counterfeiting?
It depends. I've seen one or two instances of quite high fines, but they're rare.
But if we have a case and we've got enforcement, what do you think about the current practice of judicial enforcement of IPR in Vietnam? Is it efficient?
I would say that would be the area where you'd want to improve. But it's a system that's got to be tried. It's got to be supported. It's got to be resourced properly.
And that in itself is a very, very long process.
Well, yes, it can be. I mean, so if you want to go for an injunction means you want someone to stop right now. The law says it should take 3 days. You comply.
The law says it takes 3 days.
Well, within 3 days. So in theory, you can get pretty much an immediate injunction, but in practice, your evidence has got to be localized, legalized, and notarized, which can take your foreign evidence legalized and notarized, which can take 2 or 3 months. So in practice, injunctions are very hard to get.
If you win the case, though, is the enforcement of the court order easy in Vietnam?
That's a good question, because we've never got that far.
Right.
But it's a good question because it is difficult in other places. China, for example, enforcing the judgment is quite difficult. So no reason to suspect that it would be anything different here.
We've talked about the challenges in IP and trademark registration, protection, and judicial enforcement in Vietnam. How do you see that affect the growth of foreign investment in Vietnam?
Foreign investment doesn't seem to be slowing down. I think, I think companies might think about it. They may even delay it a little bit, but ultimately, there's still a huge amount of foreign investment coming in here. There's still a huge amount of interest in Vietnam, and the opportunity is still huge. So
are you saying that there would be more of delays in foreign investment pouring into Vietnam than people pulling out of Vietnam because of complications?
I'm not aware of any companies that have not come into Vietnam, and I'm only aware of 1 or 2 that have slowed down because they've had a particular issue against with getting their trademark sorted out.
At least we've seen improvements in Vietnam, so that's a positive note. So just last question before we end the show. What would be your advice to a new investor coming to Vietnam, generally in terms of IP and trademark registration, protection, and judicial enforcement of IP and IPRs in Vietnam?
Okay. Well, just as a general advice, it's do your market research. So check out the market, and I think you'd need to decide to be in here for the long haul. So not just one action immediately and then nothing again. You'd want to follow up with a campaign. Well,
thank you very much, Chris, for being on the show with us today and providing us such great overview about the IP and trademark registration and protection in Vietnam.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
With Vietnam being one of the emerging markets, challenges are certainly widespread in various areas, including one of the most significant assets of a corporation, intellectual property rights. We hope that the challenges and solutions addressed in today's show can help set some legal direction for your future investment plans into Vietnam. If you have any questions for Chris Bale or for the show, please email the questions to phi@insidevietnam.com.vn. For past episodes and future updates, please follow us on Inside Vietnam at WordPress, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. My name is Phi Nguyen, and I'm your host on Inside Vietnam. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and I certainly hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, take care and enjoy life.